We live in a world where we are dependent on data for our work, and to be able to use data to the best of its abilities in our companies and enterprises, we are reliant on cloud computing technologies. The mention of cloud isn't complete without this one company, and I'm talking about Amazon Web Services. And to discuss more about the latest cloud technologies and the influence of artificial intelligence in this industry is joining with me Olivier Klein, who is the Chief Technologist of AWS. Hi, Oli.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. You're currently in Singapore, right? So we are across different time zones. So I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, doing great. I'm very excited about all the opportunities that lie ahead of us.
Yes, yes. So to begin with, like I mentioned in my introduction, AWS is synonymous with cloud, right? And as it is with every other business, with time, a lot of changes occur in any organization, whether it's based on customer requirements or the demands of the industry or even certain investment decisions for that matter, right? So my first question to you is, how has AWS transformed in terms of its business over the years?
Yeah, and I mean, if we look back, I mean, when we launched in 2006, where some of our first services were something like an Amazon S3, the storage for the internet on SQS as a queuing service, or the first virtual service, Amazon EC2, we've obviously come a long way to these over 200 services that we now offer throughout the platform to customers all across the world. I think one of the interesting things that you find, and I think this is really the mentality of AWS, always has been and continues to be, is that we always like to work backwards from customers, listen to our customers, and you find that over 90% of some of the functionalities that we've been building out over the years have really been based on customer feedback, customer requirements, and really making their life easier. And that has obviously added to a lot of different services that, from core services, from compute and storage that help power a lot of these companies, from small startups to large enterprises, all the way to the more interesting scenarios around data analytics, data lakes that you're building out there, all the way to, of course, and I think that's one of our conversation topic today, all the way to machine learning, AI services, all the way to the space of generative AI. And one of the things that I would also say, which is quite interesting, is we keep adding services to make the life of our customers easier, to kind of help. If you look at services such as AWS Lambda, which allows you to run your piece of code, your application, and we fully manage it, which launched this entire concept of serverless, for example, right? You don't need to care about the server. All of it is taken care of you by your cloud provider, AWS in this scenario. Or services such as Amazon SageMaker, which we launched in 2017, where we really want to democratize the machine learning space and give access to the latest and greatest technologies, the latest and greatest machine learning AI algorithm for anyone out there to use, no matter if you're a small company or the largest enterprise company out there. And so I think you can see how we evolve the platform really based on our customers' needs. And I guess in today's conversation, that goes a lot in the space, of course, in terms of data, analytics, and then, of course, AI and machine learning.
Yes, totally agreed. So I think the approach here is customer-centric, right?
That's
you are focusing on what is the best thing that you can give to your customers. Very well put. One thing that is selling like hotcakes right now, and that is generative AI.
Yeah.
So I've interacted with quite a few business leaders and technologists, and they've been talking about how they are leveraging this technology in their companies, right? And I'm pretty sure AWS is also working on that front. So how are you utilizing generative AI in the service and product offerings to your customers?
Yeah, and this will probably be a bit of a longer answer because I have a lot to talk about here. I mean, I would probably kick it off by saying, even though it's great that generative AI is really the latest buzz in town, I think machine learning or deep learning, and as such, generative AI is nothing new, and certainly nothing new to Amazon. I mean, we have a long history and heritage in the AI and machine learning space. No matter if you take from your Alexa voice services to the product recommendation to some of our forecasting engines or the way we do logistics, for example. And our first mission is really bringing these technologies and democratizing them for anyone out there, right? But really putting AI and machine learning capabilities into the hands of any developer, getting access to, let's say, the latest and greatest fraud detection or recommendation engines, the same engines that Amazon.com is using, and giving access to anyone out there, so democratizing this space. Now, in addition to that, and I think, as you mentioned, generative AI is obviously quite interesting as of lately, primarily because of the existence of large language models that have become really great in building conversational interfaces in the space of image generation, video generation, and we can dive into those details a little bit later, I'll take it. But our mission again here is multifold. I mean, the first one is give access to these capabilities for all of our customers. We do that through a variety of different means. For example, we call this foundation models. So pre-trained AI models that you can use. And again, I should mention these foundation models are often trained on billions and billions of parameters, large amounts of data. And so it's great if this is pre-trained for customers so that you don't always need to train from scratch. Make those available, large language models, image, video generation models, make those available to our customers via the use of jumpstarts or SageMaker jumpstarts, or one newer service which we call Amazon Bedrock, which is a service that makes it really easy to get access to a variety of these foundational models, some of them trained by Amazon itself, some of them through our partners like A121, which just offers the great Jurassic 2 language model, or Anthropic with their Claude language model, or in more of the image generation space, for example, you find that Stability.ai is offering their stable diffusion models through our Amazon Bedrock platform. So the idea here, making it really easy for people to say, take existing pre-trained model, fine-tune them for your company, within your environment, within your virtual private cloud, so you're in control of what the model is doing, but you don't need to always start from scratch. So I think that's the first foundation, and again, giving everyone access to those capabilities. Our second mission is also kind of looking into how can we make machine learning, and especially also generative AI in this scenario, really cost effective. So one of the elements that you have here is obviously the training of these machine learning models, but then also the inference, right? So actually running those machine learning models itself. So some of the investments that we're doing here, you might have heard of some of the custom silicon or custom chipsets that we're building, Amazon-specific chipsets called AWS Trainium and AWS Inferentia.
I do have questions about that, so let's start.
Okay, sure. Sure, no worries.
But you can go on, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just to simplify it here, I think our overall mission is how can we obviously reduce the cost, reduce the electricity consumption, run these models sustainably. So I'm just going to pause there for a second to see where you want to go.
Sure. So when I was researching about, the kind of offerings AWS has, there was a lot for me to process. And after having this conversation with you, now I know what are some of the capabilities that you're working on, especially in the generative AI space. So now that we have spoken about that, so what are some challenges and opportunities you encounter while implementing AI technologies at scale in enterprise environments? And how is AWS working on addressing it?
Yes, I think it's, again, like I said, I think democratizing the technology is great, but it's very often important that you get the foundations right. So using, for example, one generative AI model that has been trained on common data out there is great, but wouldn't it be better if I can fine-tune it specific to my company? So one of the things that I think is always a great opportunity is for us to help our customers getting those data foundations correctly. Right, so obviously, how do you, and a lot of our customers are doing this as of today, where they built their data lakes on top of AWS, built their data meshes on top of AWS. And now you have the capabilities of saying, use those data meshes that we have built already on top of AWS, fine-tune my AI models based on my own company data safely and securely within my environment. So I think that's the first kind of opportunity here to kind of look into, what can we do to really help our customers get their data strategy right. And of course, we can help there again from, and I take it you're familiar with most of our data lake and analytics services, so there's no need for me to go into details there. But that's the one thing. The other thing that I think is really important, especially if we talk about AI, because it helps us streamline operations, it helps us be more creative, be more productive, but we also want to have the right skills to use it effectively. So one of the other areas where we're looking into is how can we help upskill people in this space? How can we help them understand how to make use of machine learning model, how to make effective use of AI models? And also, I think it's very important to always work backwards from an actual use case or something that you want to achieve. It's great if you have a new tool and you say, okay, how can I use AI to do something? That's certainly never a bad idea to ideate on it, but isn't it better if we think about, well, what is the business outcome that I'm trying to drive? And based on that, then work backwards from there and say, oh, well, maybe computer vision can help me here. Maybe generative AI can help me here, help my call center agents, for example. Maybe I use an AI model to do voice transcription, use a generative AI model that helps my agent understand, what would be the best possible answers based on the incoming call that I have on my customer. So again, I think here, It's that education part, that upskilling of people part that is really important for us. And I think that's combination of everything that we're trying to do in this space, right? So democratize the overall technology, the AI models, make them available, help you get those data foundations right so that you can really fine-tune your model specific to your company, do so safely and securely within your environment. And then, of course, lastly, really the people element to this. How can we help people understand these technologies so that they're available, but you can also use them effectively and work backwards towards the outcomes that you want to drive for your business.
Absolutely, I agree, because if you'll have to utilize a technology to its fullest potential, the people that are working with those technologies need to be equipped with the knowledge regarding it, right? So,
exactly.
Well put. Thank you for answering that question. Now, moving on, we are aware that AWS is the market leader. You have Google and Microsoft, and we're all aware of Microsoft's association with OpenAI. Now, GPT-4, which is one of the most powerful foundational models to exist in this era, is the brainchild of OpenAI. And Microsoft is associated with OpenAI, like I said. So do you think that puts Microsoft in an advantageous position? And how is AWS tackling its competitors catching up, specifically in the generative AI space?
Yes, I think our approach is a little bit different here in the fact that we don't believe that there's one model that rules them all, but that there's rather advantage in really building customized model, chain models together to really get the fullest benefit out of what you're trying to do and give specific kind of models that are specific to your industry, to your business. And I think you can see that already in our approach in terms of, for example, our Amazon Bedrock service with those different foundational models that we offer, where some of them are actually models that we, Amazon, train ourselves. If you take the Amazon Titan model, which is an Amazon-specific large language model, but we also open the space for other partners in this space to offer their models, as I mentioned earlier, from Anthropic or A21 and others, and probably a lot more to come. I think that the most interesting thing here is when you have a closed model, you might not be able to really fine-tune it to your company. And I think our approach is really to say, well, how can you get access to some of these really great foundational models? Give our customers choices across the board what foundational models they want to use, but also integrate them into their existing data strategy, integrate them into their existing AI models, right? Because I think that is where a really powerful element comes in. To go back to my earlier call center example, right? This is a great example of if I can tie in some of these great generative AI models into my existing other AI models. So think, a call comes in, I have a voice transcription AI model, transcribes my call in real time. I have another, recommendation algorithm or machine learning model that looks at my existing call database, my CRM, maybe on those conversations I have with the customer. If I can now feed that into my generative AI models, then I can render hyper-personalized responses back, rather than having just generic generative AI answers that I might be getting back here. So we really believe in the power of that openness, on that modularity of these models to be able to say, you can fine tune it, you can take as is, and that's great, you already probably get great responses, but it really becomes a lot better if you can personalize it to your data, to your clients, to your customers, and giving that openness around doing this, I think really enables a lot of these hyper-personalized use cases. And again, here we were talking a lot about language-specific generative AI models, which I think has been talked about a lot lately. We haven't even started looking into the space of, let's say, image or video generations, where we have a lot of our customers that are doing so today. Take, for example, you might be familiar with Canva, which is a global visual communications platform. Excuse me. They, for example, built. If you look at it a few months back, they launched this text-to-image component, where you write in a little text and it dreams up images for you in the style that you want to have that. That's a great example of generative AI. By the way, that was actually built also using the Amazon SageMaker capabilities in less than 3 weeks, and scales up to 100 million users. That's bringing some of these visual generative AI capabilities back to any kind of end user out there. Again, I think this is also the reason why in our generative AI models and in Amazon Bedrock, we're also offering some of these visual models. So right now we're offering, for example, the Stable Diffusion Foundation model here, where I think there's a lot of other interesting use cases that we're seeing here, which go far beyond just language. But just to close it out, I think it's really that openness, that ability to chain models together, to really to really fine-tune them or personalize them specific to your company, to your industry, and do so safely and securely within your account and within your virtual private cloud. I think that's also really important, that you are in control of what data is being used and how it's being used and how that model is running, because it is within your account.
Right, right. Now we've spoken quite a bit about generative AI and AI in general as well. So apart from those technologies, what are some technological advancements that you are focusing on, in AWS, where you can say that, it has significantly improved performance and scalability for your products and services?
As in just in general, or more specific to AI?
Apart from AI, apart from generative AI and AI, yeah.
Well, I think it's a pretty broad question, because I could probably go into many different trajectories here. I think
focus on the ones that are important.
Yeah. I think overall, if you look at it, I think the continuous investments that we do across the board from our core services, if you look at some of the functionalities that we're building out there are always a variety of missions. I think the first very important mission for us is, how can we make our customers' life easier, right? Based on some of the applications that they're running, what can we do? And I addressed this earlier when we launched things such as AWS Lambda, go into a serverless space, maybe help our customers run containers more effectively, run them at the edge in different locations, etc. You can see that in the space of analytics. For example, one of the latest services that we announced was Amazon Data Zone, where a lot of our customers were looking into, how can I build a nice data mesh, right? Because a data lake is great, but what I really need is the capability of, publish, subscribe data inside my organization, across organizations, maybe even across third parties, like even software as a service solutions, right? So again, based on some of those feedbacks, we were looking into what are some of the services that we can do to simplify, for example, that data vending process that we have, and even extend so to third-party applications. So one of the latest services that we announced, Amazon App Fabric, which allows you to actually connect to SaaS solutions, software as a service solutions, right? Where you have connectors to those. Because the reality is, a lot of our customers generally use a lot of the services on top of AWS, but probably use some of our SaaS partner solution too. With that latest service, for example, not only can you now connect these platforms together, but it even directly, and sorry, now I'm going to bring back AI, it also integrates in the generative AI space, right? So you have generative AI capabilities in these connectors. And that's quite interesting, right? Because now you can actually connect all these data points together and enhance your productivity using then, of course, generative AI. So I think, and again, this is just one area, and I could probably go into many others, but I think it's really that foundation of making our customers' life easier, understanding, how can we help them connect all the different data points that they have across their platforms, and of course, within AWS, help them do so securely in a governed model within their organization. So I think these are some of the very interesting or exciting kind of latest advancements that we've done here.
Right. I did notice how you ventured into generative AI a little bit. That only goes on to show that, a majority of the things that you are working on right now somewhere is connected with AI and generative AI.
For sure.
Now moving on, the next question is, you touched upon this already, and I'm talking about the AI accelerated chips that Amazon has been working on, right? You mentioned Inferentia.
Yep.
Now, how does Inferentia stack up against NVIDIA's GPUs, or the latest AI chips which were purportedly put out by AMD?
Yeah,
that's my question for you.
So, no, great question, and I think again you can see here the mission of AWS is always, how can we give our customers the broadest and deepest choice here? So if you look at our platform, of course you get access to the Amazon-specific kind of chipsets that we talked about, Inferentia and Trainium, but at the same time, also through our great partners like NVIDIA, get access to the latest NVIDIA chips in our platform, AMD chipsets, Intel or Intel Habana Gaudi chipsets. So again, our vision, our mission here is really give access to all of these latest and greatest capabilities to our customers, offering them choice. Having said all of that, I think one of the additional reasons on why we keep investing into the space of developing a chipset such as AWS Inferentia, for example, which allows you, to do inferences or run your machine learning model, is primarily around looking into how can we, number one, reduce the electricity consumption of some of these AI or machine learning models, but also reducing the cost for our customers. So, like I said, we want to provide the broadest choice here to our customers, so it's not one size fits all, just like I mentioned earlier with models. Very often you want to probably choose for specific use cases. You might want to choose your NVIDIA GPU and you're totally fine with that. In other scenarios, you might look into, well, I want to use maybe an AWS Trainium chipset to train my models or an AWS Inferential chipset because it just offers me that lower cost or better price performance that I have for these specific models that I maybe run in comparison to other GPU instances as such. So really, it's about choice from our perspective here.
As an extension to the question that you just answered, do you think, it's better for companies to use AWS-backed chips over whatever chips that the other market leaders like NVIDIA and GPU are offering? What is your take on this?
No, I really would encourage our customers to use what makes most sense for them. Of course, there's always this opportunity of looking into, based on that AI model that you might be running, which chipset might be the best one for your specific use case. I should say one additional thing which is quite interesting is also the scalability aspect. So once in a while you might just decide, hey, for this large training of my machine learning model, I just want to have the latest and greatest and biggest GPU that I can have. But very often it is maybe more desirable to say, well, what if I can train this model, but I space it out into like 100 nodes of like smaller chips, for example, and that might allow me to run maybe even faster or more cost effective than the latest and greatest chip. And so I'd say, it depends a little bit on what you're building, depending on the AI model, what you're building, what you're training, how you're inferring from it. There's not always, there's probably different variations on what you're going to use, depending on the use case, what makes most sense. And again, I think that goes back to that overall idea, why we want to give our customers choices, because this allows them to say, well, let me try out with different chipsets, give you flexibility and choice here, so that for your use case, you find the best and most cost-effective way to train or run your machine learning model here.
Right.
And I should probably add one additional thing, sorry, because I think that's really important and it's a tie-in into your earlier question. So one of the interesting things that we also now start offering is serverless machine learning, access to these machine learning chips, right, which is really relevant for a lot of our customers that say, hey, some customers, they might run a 24/7 workload and want that chip available or hundreds of those chips available for them all the time. But the majority of our customers have kind of these workloads where traffic comes and goes and they need more access, they need less access. And again, this is another scenario where we're looking into how can we make it easier for our customers not to worry about how many nodes do I need, how many chips do I need. Just go serverless and we'll manage it for you, so to speak.
Now, moving on to the next question, let's talk about AWS in the context of India, right? Mm-hmm. So what are some interesting developments that you are seeing in the country as of now? And the other question is, how do you think Indian leaders can better prepare for something like generative AI for that matter?
Yeah, great. So I start off with the first question. I think if you follow some of the news, I mean, we recently announced, for example, to do an over $12 billion investment into the infrastructure in India across AWS alone by 2030. So you can see that commitment that we're having there. If you look at some of the region that we launched, right, we launched the second region in Hyderabad recently. We continue to expand our local zones footprint, where Delhi and Kolkata just went live, Bangalore and Chennai are coming up. So you can see there's an investment across India in terms of the infrastructure that we're building out here. And that is obviously to serve our customers best. And I think, again, you see that from independent software vendors to startups, to large enterprises such as Axis Bank or HDFC or other interesting companies such as Dr. Reddy's that looking into, well, how do I do affordable pharmaceuticals, all the way to maybe startups such as Blue Smart. I take it you're probably familiar with them, a ride-hailing app that runs 100% electric cars. So I'm really excited to kind of see, really across the board, different customers, startups, large enterprises in India that are using our platform for their needs, to scale out the applications, their capabilities, their data strategies, all the way to, of course, the AI and machine learning strategies. So I think that's really exciting to see what's happening there. Now, to the second part of your question, I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier. I mean, number one, we want to continue to invest into education, into skilling people up in this space. You see some of our AWS training and certification programs where they're machine learning specific specialities there, and we continue to invest into that. Of course, making these technologies available, as I mentioned earlier, to services such as Amazon Bedrock, to some of the chipsets that we're creating, all the way to even and I haven't mentioned it yet, even services such as Amazon Code Whisperer, which is like your AI coding companion. So if you're a software developer, now you actually get access to a coding companion that is obviously run by AI. So I think these are all things that are really helping get people started. And then I think, to your question around what would be my advice to leaders, I mean, and here I probably will sound like a broken record if anyone interviewed me before. I always talk about experimentation, right? The really nice thing about cloud computing is that you can experiment without having to live with a collateral damage of a failed experiment, right? I start with zero, I can try something out, it works for me, great, scale it out. It doesn't work for me, well, I just stop using it. It might be even under the free trial or just cost a few dollars, right? And so that experimentation is really important. And I think my recommendation there to give to leaders in India is we are certainly the provider that can help with the technology and the business model that cloud computing offers to allow for that experimentation. I would add, encourage, if you're a manager, encourage your team to potentially have that time to experiment around with it. Experiment securely and safely within your AWS environment, and that experimentation then often leads to new ideation. And I think that helps, really helps adopt that, especially in the generative AI space, helps adopt some of these technologies.
Right. That was an insightful answer. Thank you for sharing that. And moving on to the final question. So what are some future trends and developments that you envision for the cloud computing and the AI space? And how do you think will AWS position itself at the forefront of this, futuristic trend, so to speak?
Yeah, I think I'll probably go back a little bit to what I mentioned earlier. I think our mission, our mission, and probably also our vision, but definitely our mission is really how can we democratize the space, right? How can we give access to the latest and greatest capabilities, to the best in class, AI models, machine learning models, and also give access to the capabilities that Amazon is building. So if I can just do a quick pivot there, if you look at some of these Amazon Personalize, or Amazon Forecast, or Amazon Fraud Detection services, which are our fully managed AI AWS services, they're based on those same recommendation forecasting engines that Amazon.com is using. So anyone can get access to the same engine that Amazon.com is using. If you look at some of our latest services, such as AWS Supply Chain, AWS Supply Chain is a service we launched because we're looking into, hey, Amazon.com is obviously running logistics across the world. How can we give these capabilities back? And that, again, is obviously using machine learning together with the data points that you provide to optimize your supply chain, for example. So I think the overall vision here really being how can we democratize the space, how can we make all of these latest and greatest capabilities available for anyone out there to use, even without the need to having any AI or machine learning expertise, depending on the service. Again, of course, it depends what you're using. You can go as deep or as high level as you want. In addition to that, I think I would say our vision also continues to be in that openness and choice, that broad choice that you'll have. All the way from infrastructure, we talked about that in length, from the different chipsets, etc. But also going into, here are different foundation models, rather than saying here's one generative AI model that will rule them all. Here are all these different models. And by the way, you can continue to fine tune them specifically for your company. And I think that is where the real value sits, right? Because you generally want to make use of generative AI. Now, you don't want to train from scratch. You don't want to build your own, or most customers are unlikely to build their own AI model from scratch and rather use some of these foundation models. But most customers, if not all, will probably want to fine-tune it with their data, with their customer database, and do so securely and safely within their AWS account. And I think that's a space we continue to invest, make that offering, broaden that offering, work with partners to offer more foundational models, of course, including our own, pushing those out, democratizing that space, and taking that learning and knowledge that we have across Amazon and really making that available to our customers.
Well, with that, we wrap up the interview. Thank you so much. I have a lot more knowledge about what AWS is doing and what's happening in the generative AI space than when I started, and I'm pretty sure that will be the takeaway for the audience as well. Thank you so much again, Olivier.
Awesome. Really, it was really nice to have me interview here, and I think I'm really excited about the space. So thanks for your time. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Yeah.